Well, I'm sure none of us are immune to disagreements with our neighbors from time to time, whether it's over shared lawn space, tree overgrowth, or noise. But escalating feuds can lead to expensive, messy legal issues that have unpredictable results. Here to talk to us today with more tips on dealing with unfavorable neighbors or tense situations is Neinesh Kotak, founder of Kotak Personal Injury Law. Welcome. Thanks for joining us on Global News Morning.
Thanks for having me.
First off, I want to talk about some of the things that you're seeing people come to your firm with neighbors, the most common issues.
Right, most common is going to be noise, dogs, interference with dogs, potentially bites. Also tree overgrowth, that's a common one, drainage, and even situations where neighbors are sort of pointing sort of their floodlights towards your house or putting cameras where they could see inside. So we've seen all of those types of cases.
Now, as we've mentioned again, especially as the summer kind of starts to happen, people are going to be outside. Maybe they're having that noisy barbecue late at night. We have those overgrown trees and they're coming to you right away. But what should the first plan of action be, the first steps in addressing that issue with your neighbor?
I think having a really polite conversation with the neighbor. Don't forget your relationship with your neighbor is beyond that one issue or that you may be having. So certainly try to sit down with them and have a chat. If that doesn't work, maybe there are other neighbors who are having the same issue. You can sort of all get together, maybe get a third party to have a chat with them about what they're doing so they could see the light of what to do. But I suppose, if things escalate a little bit beyond, then you can look at, bylaw infractions, the city and things like that. Or even, if there's threats, police, and then, sort of last resort would be lawsuits.
You make a great point that you guys aren't really going anywhere. These are your neighbors. These are people you have to live with. So when would you say is the right reason or the right time to get, say, bylaw involved or municipalities involved?
I find that, for example, if there's a dangerous dog, the dog's been quite aggressive and you have a small pet and there's a real risk and the dog has bitten or something, certainly there's, dangerous animal bylaws that could be enforced. And those are pretty serious things that need to be done. Sometimes, for whatever reason, a neighbor doesn't cut their grass. Like maybe they're sick, check on them. Maybe that's the reason they're away, they're sick, or, it just could be plain meanness or something, and that's a situation where you could talk to the city and they would give them a letter or come out and cut the grass and actually fine them on that. So that's sort of where you'll escalate there. Drainage issues are a common problem because they can cause basement floodings, right? So, if you know there's an issue, talk to them. If not, then, that may have to be sorted out in court or through the municipality as well.
When it comes to something like fencing, I know there can be a lot of disputes over
Yes.
who should pay for broken fencing or what have you.
Right.
How do you address that?
Yeah, a fence is really, it demarks a boundary between the home and it should be paid for by both parties. Now, the cost should be reasonable. If one party wants some crazy ornamental fence and the other a simple fence, well, that's where you could have a dispute. And I think, the neighbor who wants something extravagant probably would end up paying that extra cost, but there should be a split in some way on the fence. And let's say you move into a new area, you want a fence, the neighbor doesn't. You could get the, you could do the fence and the city would make them pay for that because the fence is, it's almost a right. We all have it, right?
Okay, so a little bit more 50-50 when it comes to fencing.
Yes.
So say issues have escalated, you called the municipality, it's still not working. When do we look for legal action?
Right, so there's two sort of legal actions that can be done. One is really a tort of nuisance. That is if they're substantially interfering with the use of your property. It could be, and where there's damage. There could be a lawsuit and damages for that. The other is an interesting one. It's intrusion upon seclusion. Sort of that's really interfering with your private rights. And sometimes, it was looked at historically, okay, they're accessing your records, for example, your medical records, banking records when they shouldn't. But it also has been found, let's say they're shining cameras into your bedroom, into your bathroom, things like that. There have been cases where it's been found there's been an intrusion upon seclusion and there's been damages for that as well. So those are the particular areas we see lawsuits on. But again, honestly, these should be last resorts, but sometimes you have no choice. You know, if you know, people are people and there's good and bad, and if you're really living next to a really bad person, those are the things you might end up having to do. Remember, if there's threats, you don't want to escalate this into a physical confrontation. You're both going to get charged. So if there's threats, I would suggest going to the police to have them deal with the situation.
Some great tips. Hopefully it doesn't get to that. Nainesh, I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Again, that's Nainesh Kotak. We'll have more news, weather, and all you need right after this break.